Welcome to episode 133 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording on October the 10th, 2021. My name is Eric, I host the show based in Southern Ontario, hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and computer geek. As a first responder, I witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events and started a small preparedness company to help people get better, be able to help themselves for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
Oh boy, the internet connection is really bad today. My name is Ian, and I'm really excited to be on my first show. This is really cool. I live on Vancouver Island. I'm a student of preparedness, target shooter, and small-scale hobby farmer.
Glad to have you out, Ian. Thanks for coming out for your first episode.
Thanks, buddy.
Pleasure to meet you, Ian. I'm Alan. I'm a safety trainer, first responder, security expert, and overall safety nerd.
I'm Scott, first responder, splitting my time between Southern and Northern Ontario. I like learning things, and I don't accept that things will always carry on as they have, simply because it would be convenient for us.
And I'm Jeff. I'm based in Central Ontario. I'm a target shooter, hopefully by this time next week, a ham radio operator, and general overall handyman.
Yeah, don't exciting. Believe you, Jeff. Don't believe you. You've said that before.
I call bullshit, Jeff.
Whatever.
Hey, guys. I'm Brad. I'm from Eastern Ontario. I've been in preparedness in some way, shape, or form since the ice storm of '98, and I'm constantly trying to better myself. So, if anybody wants to help support the show, sorry.
Yep, Miss Steve in the
I
notes
didn't
here.
have the thingy there.
I'm Steve. I'm in interior BC, mechanic, outdoorsy, fishing, hunting, fabricator, a little bit of everything.
How do you feel about gasifiers?
Oh boy, here we go.
Everybody needs one.
Steve, that's why I love you, buddy.
All right, go for it, Brad.
We want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air. Buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast T-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch at prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
If you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes to like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. Also, we want your feedback, good or bad, or just if there's a topic you want us to cover. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, we've got some unscripted content for you in this episode. Oh, the dad jokes continue.
Clearly.
Oh, yeah. We're going to start off with some preparedness-related news articles. Next, we'll get into what we've done lately for our own preparedness. And then we're going to get into the main topic, just a casual fireside chat. Nothing scripted this evening. So let's move into
Wait, there's supposed to be a script?
Well,
hey, we have some talking points usually to keep us on track, as if not, well, we'd still be talking way back in episode 20.
Absolutely. I got nothing for the news. Things are happening. Pay attention. Actually, maybe one of our expert panelists can comment on. So I think it was Southwest Airlines just grounded something like 1,800 flights among staffing issues.
Wow.
Which may or may not be associated with a potential mandate for federal employees. I have no direct knowledge of such things, but it does lend to the reality that the people that are telling you that it's that you need a specific medicine to keep you out of the hospital are the same people that are also laying off hundreds of thousands of hospital workers.
Yeah, interestingly enough on that too is I guess in airport in Florida right now, which is a major hub, Jacksonville, I think it was, they had 32 or 35 staff not show up. So of course that entire airport shuts down because they can't have the passengers getting on or off the airplanes, and then it just I guess landslides from there. From airport to airport because all the other planes stop, and then it's interesting because if you were a unionized company, you couldn't do an illegal job action, but I don't think Southwest crew are unionized. So interesting.
Anyway, that is interesting.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no. It turns out too, if you get let go a bunch of your staff because of certain medication lacking status type of thing, also, you're going to be short-staffed, and it doesn't take much for a walkout to affect the entire airline. Anyway,
Well then,
as for myself, I got a couple articles here. One regarding the Lebanon power outage not that Lebanon has been a bastion of stability over the last decade or 3, but it's one of those things.
Is that where you've been for the past couple of weeks?
Shh. You notice that last time I went missing, there's a big explosion there too.
So maybe some of the thoughts in the chat group are right. Oh.
Yeah, that's right. So actually, it turns out I had to do some research on this. This is very fascinating. So Lebanon has been powered generally by 2 big power stations on the mainland, and they had 2 barges that were hooked up to a dock and supplying power to the rest of the country. And so in a great confluence of events here, they had both contracts run out for the power barges. So they just shut down and said, well, screw y'all. And then the 2 power generation stations on the mainland ran out of gas or coal, I guess it was. And because there's been a worldwide coal shortage now all of a sudden too. So Lebanon has no reason to be out of power other than contractual and or logistics issues. But really there wasn't a mechanical failure. It wasn't like there was an active war. Everything else, it's just literally, the supply chain kind of broke down on them.
Government oversight at its best, I guess.
Yeah, so it's just completely unnecessary. If they would have, anyway. Neither here nor there, but I would say they've been without power for over a week, and they're going to be without power for the next 3 weeks minimum.
I think it's reasonable to say that just about all problems are caused by the government rather than solved by them.
Yeah, like the old saying goes, right? I'm from the government here to help. But
so other lies.
I guess it's good for them, the fact they live in a climate that even during their, quote unquote winter, they can still survive quite handily without power for a month. But also, it's probably a good thing it wasn't summer there because it'd be blistering hot. So, I mean, relatively good shape. I guess they're probably used to having power outages after decades of war and stuff too. So, I don't know. It's just not a great situation though.
No, it's not.
No.
No. Next one I had was from, I'll have to thank Better Andrew for this one from the other CPP. He gave me an article from thenextweb.com, which talks about drones on the loose. And so they've got an algorithm going for these drones now that they can fly through a forested area at up to 40 kilometers per hour, which, if you can imagine, is a pretty good clip to go and zoom around trees like sci-fi movie style. So I think the headline of the actual article says, humans beware, or humans run and hide.
I've seen this one. It was a Star Wars episode. It didn't end well for everybody. Didn't end well for the Ewoks.
No, exactly. And I was like, wow, this is actually getting pretty crazy now. So what's the next logical step? Is arm them. It's just wow. It's
Great.
just
Great.
So the next war.
If you keep reading down in that article, it states that they want to even up their speed with better sensors later.
Yeah,
to make them go even faster.
We know that the next World War will be fought in space or on top of very tall mountains.
Yeah.
No, it's very interesting because I think the tweak the AI bit and the take away the human controller. Then there should be theoretically no limit to how fast they can react. So it's pretty cool. So anyway, that's pretty much all I had.
Mildly terrifying.
Just slightly terrifying, yeah. So I've got 2 articles here. One is in regards to, I know, shocking vaccines. 2/3 of federal workers are actually exempt from being vaccinated. So that's interesting to say the least. I listened to the Mark Petroni show while I was out working in the yard today, and he's got a whole bunch to say about the topic. So if you want to talk or you want to listen to that, he talks a lot about it. And then I got another article here about a ham radio operator that actually saves his friend's life. His friend was about 500 miles away. So it just talks about how his friend was having a stroke, wasn't able to get to a phone readily accessible, but had a radio right on his side and was able to put a call out and get some help. So
I seem to remember that he was they were like cross country or something, right? There was a fairly significant distance.
Yeah, it's a good distance, yeah.
And and he was able to just look up the local EMS station or whatever it was. I think he called the local police and was able to get
this guy just called 911. He had been to his friend's house before, even though it is a distance away, and was able to describe where his friend lived, and then they were able to relay the information.
That's great.
What was
really
nice.
He's having a stroke.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of neat. So neat article to look at, and that was actually sent to us by listener Aaron. So appreciate you sending that in. It's Aaron and Owen, if I remember correctly, or Oren. So, those are the two I've got.
I got nothing.
All right, so I've got a couple. It's just been an ongoing thing from the last several episodes of just the issues with the supply chain. Financial Post is basically saying they've never seen it this bad. That Christmas and getting stuff for gifts and things like that is probably at risk. So if you see something you want, don't wait till before Christmas to get it. Get it now, or you're probably not going to get it. And the second one I've got, again, shocking, but that there's an article about hospital staffing to get much worse as the COVID mandates kick in. Again, I'm not here to debate the good or bad or whatever of the mandate. I believe everybody should have the right to choose. It does a bit go back to preparedness of the fact that your first aid kits might start coming in handy when not only hospitals, but I've heard of backlogs in ambulances and down Windsor Essex way, they put on leave 18 of their paramedics. And then the union, of course, sent a blast out basically saying, yep, call an ambulance unless you're actually legitimately dying. You're probably going to wait 3 hours for an ambulance. So,
yeah, Alberta's going through it too right now with suspended workers and inability to staff trucks.
Yep. Yep. And it's only going to get worse. And again, I'm not here to debate either side of the thing. I just the one it's not an article, but that I've linked in, but somebody sent it to me the other day. That basically said the University Health Network in Toronto, which makes up a lot of the hospitals there, Sunnybrook and Sick Kids and Toronto General and all that, have made a mandate that if you are on the transplant list, you must be vaccinated or you will be kicked off the transplant list. So I don't know where nobody will ever be denied healthcare based on their vaccination status came from, or whether it was just a load of BS, but that's apparently what that hospital has made the decision. If you're not vaccinated, don't come to us looking for a transplant. You can die.
Australia's done the exact same thing. If you're not vaccinated, you don't get health care.
Really?
Craziness.
I changed up where I go with my news article. So the NASA DART, Double Asteroid Redirection Test, they're going to crash a kinetic vehicle into a small asteroid to just nudge its trajectory a little bit and see that small change will have bigger consequences in that long term, kind of that compound interest. It changed just a smidge of a degree, and it's anyway. So it's a pair of asteroids that are going to hit the little one and sort of see how it compares to the big one. So I'm just happy that NASA is kind enough to look after something. So it's one less thing for me to worry about.
Okay, that's
until the next time it makes its orbit and it comes back and it's directly in our path now.
I feel like there's a movie about this.
Also, I think that's just dumb. That everybody knows the proper solution to an asteroid coming in is to send 2 shuttle loads of oil rig workers to go in there and drill down and plant that nuke.
Yes.
But make sure the trigger's on a timer. Oh, wait, the timer's not working.
Well, Liv Tyler looks on longingly.
Oh,
there we go. NASA, if you're listening, we have the solution.
Yeah.
That's how it's done. All right, shall I move into what we've done lately for preps?
I've been getting the house and vehicles ready for winter. And I also got to enjoy a fantastic live stream from Josh at the Ham Radio Crash Course on the Baofeng Radio, which are available at Rapid Survival, I do believe.
Not anymore. Industry Canada, you didn't hear that.
I guess they were formerly available at Rapid Survival, and now just get them wherever the heck you want.
Yeah, they were available until Industry Canada called me and threatened to charge me with $100,000 fine. So, yeah, that was the end of that.
Damn the man.
Yep.
Just trying to help you.
But is there not a Canadian version now, Eric? That
You're what?
There is. Yeah, there's
You're what?
There's a version now that is signed off, has an Industry Canada number and everything.
Yeah,
but,
it's up there. It's right there.
Good luck getting it.
It's in the silver thing.
I think Alan needs to mute his mic.
There we go.
Whoops. Sorry, guys. I thought I muted it.
If anybody's wondering, it's up there in the silver thing.
Yeah. That's
Yep.
right.
We don't know what it is, but it's up there in the silver thing.
Yeah.
For those keeping score, that's a weed pen that is up there in the silver thing, and now it's no longer in the silver thing because it is in my darling wife's hands.
Well, there you go. All right, Brad.
Well, I pulled out 2 generators that I have here on the property that need some work. And I got a lead from Urbex on the other CPP to go to a guy to have him look at them for some service. Pulled out some solar panels that I need to test. Hopefully set them up for a springtime camp use. General yard cleanup for the winter. I'm going to cut my lawn one last time for the year tomorrow. I got some sand and a garbage can for an experiment with potato, onion, and carrot storage for over the winter. I did some plant leaf trimming in the backyard in preparation for harvest. And I started organizing my shed for the winter and prepped my snowblower. That was it.
Nice.
That's like Ian level tasking.
I know. I was writing it all down, and I'm like, wow, I did a lot this week. I'm pretty proud of myself.
Who's
And
this
all
Ian
I
you
did
speak
was
of?
some property cleanup. Cleaned out my gutters again. I did it once already, but enough leaves have fallen. I did it a second time, and just raked up and cleaned up some leaves and stuff. Picked up some debris around the property.
Right. For myself, I learned that no matter how hard I try to lock down my digital life, there's always one account that slips by. I got an email from Sony on the 7th saying, "Hey, thanks. Your email address has changed." What? No, I didn't change it. So somebody got into my my PlayStation account, and as Jeff knows, I'm only on there like once in a blue moon. But thankfully, Sony picked up on the fact it wasn't me, and they locked the account down. And it took me about an hour to get it back up. But now there's 2-factor on it as well, and a stronger password because it just kind of slipped through the cracks. I just completely forgot it was even there. So that was interesting. And then same thing. I've been cleaning up the property because the leaves are falling, and I have a giant tree out front. And there's tons and tons of leaves to clean up. So that's been fun.
Sounds like you guys seriously need some alpacas because basically what happens is the leaf hits the ground. And it's like the ball boy in the tennis match. They come swooping along, they grab that leaf and just eat it, and there's no pickup problems.
I might have to do that.
Or get a goat or something.
Maybe, yeah. Or just a couple of play toys like a leaf blower and a lawn tractor to take care of the leaves. That's
okay. Think of the environment, Eric.
How about a fire?
Is there someone around here who rents alpacas?
There's got to be. I ran into one guy in Calgary, rents his out for $350 an hour, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
Wow.
But
living on the island.
Yeah, but that too. But his rents out for that much because it's able to ride in elevators and go into hospitals and attend birthday parties. And I'm like, mine are just too cranky for that. So
it's an emotional support alpaca. Got
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't think I don't want to bring them to work.
Yeah. I also had the chance to meet up with Alan, even though it was a brief meeting. At least we got to say hello face to face. So it's always nice to meet up with another panelist and say hello. And then got the podcast Discord server all set up. So hello 24/7 prepper resource. So if you haven't joined yet, I put the link in the live notes here, and I put it on the Facebook page too. So check it out.
Yeah, the Discord looks great. There's lots of different sections in there and stuff. So it'll be nice and organized.
Yeah. And I'll add more as we think they need to be there. So I know I missed something for sure.
Right on. For us over here, we got a new freezer, so we were moving all the food back and forth between freezers and cleaning them out and stuff like that. And then I put a dual band J pole up in the attic just for VHF, UHF, so I have something at home rather than just a handheld. That's about all.
Nice.
Cool. Does that actually have no problem with signal coverage going through the roof material?
Yeah. No problem. Just regular asphalt shingles and plywood, right? So yeah, not a problem at all.
Cool. Huh. As for myself, I also checked out Josh's live stream there, and then I promptly had my internet go down to the point where I couldn't watch a YouTube channel. So I was a little disappointed at that, but I'm going to be watching that one later. It was very informative, even from the very beginning onwards, he covers stuff that I didn't even know about that on the UV5R. So it was pretty good. Because my video is not working, unfortunately, I can't show you guys my cool new lighter, but I got one of those plasma lighters that's off the interwebs that basically uses electricity. And I found out, fun fact from a friend of mine, that it turns out those things are actually fairly high voltage, because he managed to try and start his gas-powered stove with one and managed to touch his finger to the stove and the lighter to the stove at the same time. And surprise, surprise. So he says, yeah, that's some good couple thousand volts running through that thing. So I'm like, oh, excellent, good to know. So yeah, ordered reloading supplies for the reloading
Mini
season.
taser.
It's like mini taser, but don't say that because then they'll ban them or something. They're pretty cool. I actually haven't tested them on paper, but they instantly get that paper on fire like faster than magic can even do it. It's pretty crazy.
Well, the cool thing about them, you don't need butane to recharge them. You can recharge them with a solar panel or like just a USB plug. Sorry.
Oh, you're harshing my journey here. Okay.
Edit that out. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. So order reloading supplies for the reloading season. So yeah, obviously be sitting here in the rain for the next few months, providing I don't find a new spot somewhere, and just sitting reloading. So yeah, I got the supplies on the way before they run out, because I got the last of his powder, last of his primers, and it turns out he's short on a lot of stuff. So supply issues. Let's see here. I guess when I started the podcast, we were at 7 coops. We've consolidated all the way down to 2 now. So we sold off a bunch of chickens, sold off a rooster, layers, everything else, to try and get it just down to a manageable level for just the wife and I, basically. Which means I have another storage shed to play with, which is great. Let's see here. Now, I tweaked the homemade solar Jenny. So the solar powered with a battery kind of installed solar Jenny has like USB ports. It has like a 12-volt cigarette lighter. It has kind of everything going for it. I want to keep it pretty, so I had to get a proper size spade bit to drill the holes, but I have all the wiring and everything set up, and I checked it out. Works great. So my goal here is that basically I want to be able to charge the ham radios, the drones, the lighter, flashlights, and cell phones. Yes, I can. And the most important thing,
so cool.
And the most important thing I can charge with it, night vision scopes. So, because now they're all internal batteries with USB attachments. So I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. So if you can run everything off the Soul Jenny, that's just a nice little handy portable unit to, do all your preparedness-minded stuff, which is kind of cool. So, and that did a little armed hiking, also known as hunting. Spotted a bear. Wasn't the bear I was after. Let him go. Actually, we freed him twice in the last 3 days, which is kind of funny. And other than that, just been doing some hiking in general for fitness. Redesigned some eaves troughs coming off the main shed because they were putting the water in the wrong spots. So now I kind of changed the direction and entire design of it. Rotated some gas, test run the Big Jenny, and yeah, I have to explain my absence. So I've been way too much time at work, basically spending a lot of time in the States, which really makes me angry because you can't do much down there or bring stuff home, can't shop, can't do anything. Had some company over as well, which didn't help. And then once again, I had to go over to Vancouver to deal with my daughter who had an emergency once again and was the victim of some crime. So that was not good. So unfortunately, that's when I missed another episode. And then I do appreciate the chirping online from both the panelists and the listeners. That was pretty awesome.
It's been the best 5 episodes we've ever had.
Yeah.
It's been so much fun.
I guess if you didn't say anything at all, that means I wasn't liked at all. But I guess clearly you missed me. So that's what must be happening here, right?
You were clearly missed.
Clearly.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for me.
I did some I did some fuel rotation. I'm working on the last phase of the outside of my garage, which is the landscaping. So taking down my gardens now that we've been able to harvest most of the vegetables. We're taking down the garden so I can move the shed into where the garden was, build new gardens, and then I can finish my landscaping and be done with the exterior of my garage. So that's been my progress this week. I've been getting some time in on the rower. I actually went for a nice long run today to mostly avoid the family, and that's pretty well. I put my winter kit in my truck, so I got the winter emergency package ready to go.
Nice. Well, Kyle in the live chat here says, "Welcome back, Vancouver Island Unicorn."
Oh, there you go. Awesome. Nice to be back.
CGN.
Actually,
Call
if you want to mention those, yes, I did some of those deals too, but I didn't want to like hog that much airtime.
I'm guessing you haven't listened to all the back episodes yet, have you?
Yeah.
Okay. That CGN comment there will make sense if you listen to them. All right, let's move into the main topic, shall we? So, Thanksgiving for all of us Canadians, Americans listening. You just do the date wrong. This is when Thanksgiving actually is this weekend. So this is our Thanksgiving special. We decided to bring all the panelists together here with our green screens, pass around the turkey, the homestead grown potatoes, all that good stuff, freeze dried peas, foraged mushrooms, and then just sit around the campfire and chat. We enjoy all the episodes of banter and silliness, like the $1 Million Doomstead or the last 3 or 4 Rian hasn't been around and we've chirped the heck out of them. So we're just hoping that maybe the listeners would enjoy too, and just gather around with us, and we're just going to chit chat and see what we come up with. And surely there'll be some disagreement around this table with Uncle Jeff running off on some random tangent, because that's what he does, and Gramps Scott there talking about back in his day and how things used to be, while he puts new speed tennis balls on his walker. But we're going to pass the marshmallows around. Everybody pour a drink, and don't forget to turn up your carbon monoxide detectors, because we're going to chat here and see what's up.
There's 26, by the way, if anyone, for everybody keeping track. Kyle.
Kyle, sharpen your pencil there. I think I'm going to make a section in the Discord for you so you can keep stats up there.
We'll just have the Kyle section.
Yeah, it's Kyle's stat corner.
So I'm drinking some Forester's bourbon. It's absolutely fantastic, and just finished some pie. We actually did have our Thanksgiving dinner earlier tonight with potatoes grown right here on the property, and nice. Brussels sprouts. And we picked all of our tomatoes today, so we've got some sauce going. The chickens were not ours, but they were locally sourced, and we, instead of turkeys, we did chickens so that we could put them on the rotisserie. So we did those over the campfire. Or over the rotisserie with wood that was chopped from this property. So we're getting as close to self-contained as we can.
Nice. And I forgot to mention live chat. There's 13 people watching right now. Feel free to chime in, throw some questions in that you have with the panel, or chit chat about whatever you want, and we'll link it in here as we go. So. Yes, we will get started. Is Ian still with us, or did you drop out? No, we just lost Steve.
No, I got still relatively here. Anyway, right. So I'll start off with a good conspiracy theory, because what better way to start it off? So back last election, if you recall, during the presidential debates, Joe Biden mentioned there's going to be a dark winter. So I figure winter is coming. Let's talk about a lot of things here.
Go.
I don't know if you guys noticed, this seems to be a lot of stuff coming together at the same time. That all seems to be adding up to like a real mess this winter. So definitely dark. Yeah. So we can stop. I guess the first thing we should probably talk about is this. Have you guys been following the Evergrande thing with the financial contagion?
The what?
I have not.
No, first I heard of it.
Okay, so Evergrande was basically the largest construction company in China. They were responsible for building all those ghost cities that they couldn't figure out why they were building them, and nobody was living in them. And so what happened was, it turns out it was a giant Ponzi scheme, like Bernie Madoff times 100 level, and so they built all these buildings, and they kept on convincing people to get 20% or 30% returns on this stuff. And I guess the investors stopped coming in, and some of them asked for their money back. And before you know it, they can't make interest payments on these massive multi-billion-dollar loans that they owe now. So they've already missed a payment deadline on one of their interest payments. Of course, the Chinese government originally covered it, but I think the next one they're not covering, in which case a couple other banks have already said, well, if Evergrande fails, we're going to fail. And of course, every bank is linked around the world, and they're concerned that basically if Evergrande goes down, which is, I think they said 20% of China's GDP in one company,
wow,
that could basically create an entire financial collapse worldwide. Simply the fact is there'll be a cascading series of failures among banks because everybody's loaned this company money. So,
yikes!
And so it's
that just seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
Ever.
And so everybody's like, well, China better bail them out, but it doesn't seem to be there like jumping to the pump to do so. So I don't know what's going on, but this Evergrande thing is actually a massive deal, and nobody seems to be paying much attention to it. And they're certainly not paying attention to it here in the markets in the U.S. or Canada. So I don't know what's going on. But that was interesting.
Well, it would probably be in China's best interest for all the worldwide banks to fail, wouldn't it? Given that we all owe China like vast amounts of money that we can never possibly pay back.
Well, the problem is that it becomes that too big to fail thing, right? Like, does China want to increase their own debt load and, to save Evergrande, or do they want to let Evergrande go down and just deal with the consequences afterwards? But either way, like, there's a reason they didn't let a lot of Lehman Brothers and those types of banks back in 2008. Some of them they let go, some of them they didn't, because some of them are just too dang big now. And I don't know. Like, the old saying, if you owe the bank $1,000, you have a problem. If you owe the bank 100 million, they have a problem.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
That's true. Well, and it comes back to that whole concept of, like, we've created this whole concept of money that money's not real, right? We like worldwide there's something like $400 trillion in debt, but to whom? Right? You do the math, right? Like, the guy comes into the hotel and pays $100, and the hotel owner takes it to the butcher, and the butcher pays the delivery driver, and the delivery driver pays the gas company, and the gas company pays the hotel for his restaurant bill, and that same $100 goes around 5 times and pays off $800 in debt or $500 in debt. Like, we've created this we've created this problem that theoretically could be solved with a whole bunch of people saying, no, we're not, like, we just don't acknowledge debt anymore. But then who would have the power? And that's the real question.
Well, the problem is, instead of just saying no, they've created 30% of all money in circulation in the last year in the U.S. So they just keep on printing more money. And right now, their current solution to their debt ceiling is to mint a platinum or some fancy metal, anyway, $1 trillion coin, and that's straight out of The Simpsons.
I was going to say that's a Simpsons episode.
Yeah,
and then somebody's going to steal it and go try to buy Cuba.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that was the best
Why
part.
wouldn't
Like,
it be?
once again, The Simpsons nailed it, right? But seriously, they were actually considering minting a $1 trillion coin just to solve their financial woes for the next 3-4 months. I'm like, are we serious?
Didn't Zimbabwe or somebody do that too? And you get like $50 million bills, and it won't buy you a loaf of bread.
Yeah, Zimbabwe had $50 trillion bills for a while.
Yeah. And these numbers just don't matter to anything, right? It's completely artificial.
And that's why I think they're pushing for this digital currency, so people don't see how bad it is. But I tell you, this is not sustainable in the remotest and long term. So Evergrande, I think, is just your canary in the coal mine. And yeah, it could have some far-reaching, repercussions, I guess, down the road.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I think that's why so many of us see value in tangible assets, things you have on site, a garden, seeds, freeze-dried food, hypothetically a wood gasifier, CO detectors, whatever.
So that's 33 minutes, 19 seconds in for Kyle.
No, but those actual useful, tangible assets that mean something, that aren't dependent on a fragile electric grid or an internet connection that has to get to a server halfway across the continent or 3 continents away. Actual meaningful, useful things. Because you're right, when the financial system is a giant Ponzi scheme, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't China do the construction as part of their GDP as opposed to the purchased property as part of their GDP? So you can build an empty building and it counts towards productivity.
Because everything's owned by the state. You don't actually own your apartment. You lease it from the state for a set period of time. So
so that's how that applies.
Yeah, because communism, right? So they don't have any property rights or anything over there, and that's why the country originally could afford to have all these buildings sitting empty, because the state's covering the power bill anyway. So all good, right? Yeah.
The problem with socialism, you eventually run out of other people's money.
Yeah.
which is like Scott, you're right that having things in your house is better than having assets in the bank if the bank disappears. However, if the bank has if you have a mortgage to the bank, then all of those tangible assets need to go somewhere when the bank calls that mortgage all of a sudden, which most mortgages have the option to do. So if the bank needs to generate an absolute ton of cash all of a sudden, they're going to start calling mortgages, and nobody's going to be able to pay, and they're going to take your property, and then either you have to lose all the stuff that's in it, or you have to find another place to put it really quick.
Yeah, but the banks aren't interested in doing that because they have no interest in dealing with properties. They don't want to be a landlord. They don't want to have to sell properties, especially on loss.
No, but it becomes an asset all of a sudden, right? So when the bank has to go to the government and say, we have X amount of debt and we have X amount of assets, if they start all of a sudden they own $100 million in property that they didn't that was debt before in mortgages, now it's assets and property, that looks really different on a P&L sheet.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I guess there's been a real turnover in the States right now too. I guess it's is it BlackRock? I think it is one of the largest corporations out there, right? And of course they become one of the largest landlords in the States now because of all the defaults and changes in hands with the bank taking over stuff. I think they said 20% right now of all new houses right now are owned by BlackRock.
And yet we have some kind of housing crisis.
Yep.
Beat me to it.
Yikes.
Yeah. Craziness.
Yeah.
Absolute craziness.
Well, that's why that one beat to death anyway. So I also want to talk about supply chains. Like I think Jeff touched on it briefly. I think right now there's 90 ships sitting off the port of Long Beach, California, waiting to get offloaded. And they're talking about supply chain issues and shortages for the holiday season. But I did some digging. It turns out these little buggers don't even work on Sundays, and they don't have a night shift.
Oh yeah, it's a completely artificial shortage. If you look at there's that map of where every ship in the world is.
Yeah,
there are hundreds of them just like bunched up around the ports waiting to offload.
Yeah.
Vancouver, Montreal, Halifax, they're all doing the same thing. They've been sitting there for weeks. And there's no production of there's no throughput of people actually offloading the ships. And again, just what a yeah, fine, I'll say it. What a clusterfuck.
I can't remember which port it was, but one of the ports they basically have 3 docks. So they can put 3 ships in and unload them, and for whatever reason nobody can seem to figure out, they decided that it was time to take one of those ports and fix it, and reconstruct it, and do it in the middle of the time when you need that port to unload. Oh well, let's shut it down for 11 months and fix it and rebuild it so that it can unload faster. But that 11 months of unloading a thing.
Because I see the world through rose-colored glasses sometimes, I will assume that there was critical infrastructure problems. They didn't have a choice but to shut it down, because that happens, right? Everything has a life cycle. It will all eventually break down. There's no good time for construction, right? There's no good time for life cycle of something to end. It was probably scheduled to be done this year anyways, and it just happened to coincide with major shortage of everything because nobody wants to work and do things right now.
Well,
so is it the main issue? Is it the shortage of workers at the port then?
Well, and that's the thing, is nobody really wants to, talk about it. But for example, over in Shanghai, or just south of Shanghai, it's one of the largest ports in the world. I think it's the 3rd largest in the world, largest in China. And they shut down the entire set of docks for one COVID case about 2 months ago. And then, Long Beach is sitting there. Well, they've got a shortage of workers, and they're saying that they can't add an extra shift. By the same token, though, the dock workers are walking off the job, and they say there's, people that are sitting at home getting paid that, from the equivalent of a CERB down there that just didn't want to come back to work, and they've got all sorts of issues.
Well, and they're having issues where the shipping containers are coming in because there's so few workers. It's not in their interest to spend the time to load empty shipping containers to send back across the Pacific. So there's a huge shortage of shipping containers at the other side to send full this way. And the problem that companies are having is shipping costs are up like 600 to 1,000%, where it used to cost, $2,500 to ship a standard 20-foot shipping container. It's now like, instead of 2,500, it's 25,000, to the point where Chinese suppliers are like, here's our product. Please don't buy it. We can't afford to ship it to you. The shipping costs on, a friend of mine was looking at e-bikes, and the shipping cost on an e-bike coming from China was going to be like 5 times or something ridiculous what the cost of the actual product was. So it's caused this cascading problem, and it leads to the shortage of everything. I mean, Jeff and I both love putting supply chain news articles in the podcast because it keeps happening, and it's getting worse. And it's kind of like that speed wobble where it's sort of like back and forth, but the amplitude just kind of keeps getting higher and higher and higher, and worse.
And it would be nice if, and I see Chris just made a comment in the live chat. Exactly what I was thinking was, it would be great if we made more things here and we wouldn't have to get them shipped in. But again, the problem becomes, like Ian said, where do you find the workers? People don't want to work. They're getting paid to sit at home. And so, I mean, yeah, you can make a plant and you might want to build something, but where are you going to get the workers from?
Well, and the biggest challenge, and the reason the legislation, or the reason that manufacturing moved overseas in the first place was the legislation here, right? Like, where we're paying in Ontario like a $15 minimum wage, in China, like, we're paying $15 an hour, they're paying $15 a week or a month. So the labor cost is always your biggest cost on anything, whether it's manufacturing or construction or mining or whatever. But it's so much exponentially higher, and you have so many more stringent safety and environmental standards here that another country can say, well, we can build it cheaper. And what does the average consumer want? They want it cheaper.
Well, I think you did hit the nail on the head, though, too, Alan, is the fact that environmental concerns, right? Like, so here you would be able to build half the factories they build there because of the emissions standards, or maybe safety standards, or anything else.
Or the water, or the wastewater discharge, or
exactly.
the number of bathrooms they put in the buildings for the number of workers. Like, the way that their standards are so low by comparison. I mean, we've talked about this before, like with Haiti. Right? Haiti keeps having earthquakes and they keep losing every one of their buildings, but they also keep building the same thing over and over again and not building for the next earthquake or the next hurricane. China does the exact same thing. We piss and moan and go to all of these conventions worldwide about how we're going to reduce carbon dioxide emissions or whatever other greenhouse gases. And that was dioxide, by the way, just for the record. And while the Western nations, or the consumer countries, say, yes, we'll reduce our emissions, all they're doing is just transferring it to another country by producing somewhere else where they don't agree to those standards, and then claiming that we're superior because we have better emission controls.
And they specifically exclude those countries from any new regulations too that are like universally agreed upon. So, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so they've tried chartering private vessels to kind of compensate for the lack of, I guess, carriage ability for all the cargo ships. But again, the same problem exists. These private vessels show up, they got nowhere to offload. So, yeah, it's becoming a real problem with supply chains. Anyway, on that note, next one.
What else we got? Jeff, how's your studying going for the ham radio course?
It's going very well, thank you. Thanks
for all the time you spent not writing the test, I expect you to get like 95 to 100 on
it. Yeah, I've been out of school way too long, so we'll see how it works. But
we do have a question in the live chat from Kyle. Just wondering which is going to happen first. Is COVID being eliminated, or is Jeff going to be a licensed ham radio operator?
That's a tough call. It's really a coin toss at this point.
First of all, if COVID gets eliminated, they can't make money off that. So I can't see that happening.
So yeah, but if Jeff gets his license, If Jeff gets his license, then what are we going to bitch about? I think he's going to have to leave his license for like another year at least. So I think it's a coin toss. Also, Kyle, we should get you on the show. You're awesome, and we appreciate you.
Absolutely.
So you guys been following China at all?
I try not to.
Yeah, same here.
Although I did see that the Queen Elizabeth carrier group entered the South China Sea, and China didn't appreciate that too much. That was kind of interesting to watch.
Yeah, when they said they were sending Big Lizzie in there, I was like, well, that's kind of a rude name for one of your people, but it turns out that's a ship.
Her Majesty's warship, Queen Elizabeth. Yes.
Yes, and then so yeah, I guess China's been talking more about reuniting Taiwan again. This is kind of like Dr. Evil's go-to plan is like, oh, let's just steal another nuke and hold the world hostage. Well, let's take back Taiwan. But I think China's really trying to get serious now because they figure because the U.S. is distracted with a bunch of other problems that we've been talking about and stuff, that it's a good time to give it a try.
Let's go, Brandon.
That's right. Let's go, Brandon. So, yeah, they've been sending plane load after plane load, literally, of fighters, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it. Formations of fighters over the Taiwan Strait into Taiwan's airspace to try and see what they can get away with. And it's getting to the point where they're sending like 50, 60, 70 fighters at a time over there. And they're trying to do a naval blockade on Taiwan. So the United States and the British are coming to their rescue. And China's telling their people to prepare for war. And a lot of saber rattling going on. So I figured that was just another thing that could touch off. And most of the pundits are saying it's different this time for reals. So I don't know what's going on, but maybe they think there's going to be a kinetic war soon there. Might be short-lived, but who knows?
Where is that last microchip plant on the planet located?
Oh, yeah, Taiwan. That's right. And
crap.
And who makes the rest of them?
Oh,
China.
So yeah, as if they didn't already make everything as it is, but that'd be a great way to hold the rest of the world hostage is if you controlled all the microchips, which is a James Bond movie plot with Christopher Walken, by the way.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
And just
Absolutely
going back to the blockade thing, it's totally unrelated, but just interesting. I seen it the other day. So obviously everybody knows Britain left the EU, and apparently there was some sort of a way that they were handing out fishing licenses and doing things with fishing licenses. And a lot of the fishermen in France are complaining that they're not getting their licenses, and they have threatened to start blockading ports in Britain or around Britain. They talked about there's one in Calais, which is actually a French port, but a lot of stuff for Britain comes through there as a way to protest that they're not getting their licenses. And so
Wait, the French are protesting something? Come on.
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
That's brand new. That's never happened in the history of the world before.
No. I'll keep my mouth shut.
Ran out of baguettes.
Oh man.
I love Jason's comment there about.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that's a
My wood stove
great
has
point,
no
Jason.
microchips.
By the way,
That's
I
my
still
world.
have a wood stove in my backyard I need to get rid of.
I will come and get it. Is the ground dry?
Come and get it. The ground is dry. Yeah, absolutely. It's concrete all the way. You just come and get it. I really want it gone. I'm actually I'm searching for an oxyacetylene cutting torch to cut it into pieces. I swear this thing weighs 500 pounds.
No,
it's
don't
like
do
double
that. Don't
walls.
do that.
Okay, well then come get it because I want it gone. It's,
All right,
it's in my
Send
way.
me an address. I'll get it picked up. I'm not joking. Send me an address. I'll get it picked up.
Well, check
It's
the
It's gonna be worse than
check the
mine.
group chat.
I know, right?
Yeah, so Scott and Brad get to a duel over who goes to pick up the wood stove.
Well, we're both about the same distance away. I propose some kind of race.
That would be good.
Sure.
Amazing race.
Yep.
By
An
dog
amazing
sled?
race, yeah.
And you know what? Because I've separated the door. I'll make the door some kind of like scavenger hunt, and you have to like answer clues to get to the next one. Whoever can figure it out first gets the door.
Here's a tip: the answer is
Carbon monoxide.
Just carbon monoxide. Yes. And you'll have to pick at least one lock to get through it. So Brad might have the advantage there.
Ooh.
Although Scott, I sent you picks, didn't I?
To replace the set that I already had.
There we go.
Uh,
Ooh, the plot thickens. Brad, how you doing there?
Guess I'm practicing on the drive down, eh?
this is going to be a good competition.
But I can load it faster than Scott can.
That I believe.
Here we go.
I can load it onto my truck faster than Scott can.
Just because I'm in my 90s doesn't mean I can't. Wait, no, never mind.
just put the speed tennis balls on your walker. You'll be fine.
I'd call him a big city guy too. That he's all weak and whiffy, but he's not even a big city guy anymore.
No, he's not.
Oh. Anyway, staffing shortages. Anybody have a, I guess, for help wanted signs in their business's window or
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Oh, my God.
Everywhere.
Every job site, every construction site that I go to, like I literally get offered a job 5 times a week. Hey, do you want to come work for work concrete? Do you want to come frame? Do you want to come install glass? Do you know anybody that wants to? Everybody's desperate.
Yeah.
Everybody's
around here's got
desperate.
help
Where I
wanted
work,
signs up.
Where I work, I go to a lot of construction sites, and same thing here in the Ottawa area. That everybody. You can't drive down one industrial sort of street in Ottawa without seeing at least 10 help wanted signs or signing bonus signs or come work for us. A whole lot of them everywhere.
Yeah, same here in the Okanagan also. We had several small restaurants close because they don't have anybody to work there, right? And in the past here in this area, it's been it's hard to find a job kind of thing because everybody wants to be here because of the weather and such. But nowadays, if you don't have a job here, it's because you don't want to work.
Well, there's the incentives that are coming out for things like restaurants. Like I've never seen this before. So in Ontario, the minimum wage is $15 an hour, 15.10 or something. There's a service minimum where tipping is part of your salary, and I think it's $11.50 or something an hour. I don't remember exactly, but there are restaurants and bars that are hiring servers at like $21 and $22 an hour, plus the tips that they're going to make because nobody wants to do the job.
Wow.
So they've got to incentivize it so much, and it's. I mean, I good for the servers, right? They've got such demand that they can command higher wages. I'm really happy for them. I feel really bad for the owners who are trying to turn any kind of a profit and take at least even a measly salary out of it, and all of a sudden their wage cost is tripled.
Well, they've had so many lockdowns lately. They were at restricted capacity, so they're already probably losing money as it is, and that's not helping.
Yeah, so they're 50% capacity now, plus less whatever group of people are choosing not to go in because they don't want to have to show a passport or vaccine certification. So they don't want to. They're at 50% capacity already. They're not even full at that, like they're not even seating their maximum capacity, and on top of that they're paying double the wages. And I feel terrible for the owners because they're I know a fair number of restaurant owners in my area, and they're not like these are not multimillionaires that are that are buying yachts and sending their kids to private school. These are small business owners who are in a good year making a reasonable salary, and maybe they'll take a 1 week all inclusive to Cancun, but that's about it. Like these aren't high margin industries to begin with, and then
they're really getting the short end of the stick too, because the Ontario government just said max capacity for things like the Rogers Centre and the Jays games and hockey games and movie theaters and all that. But they said the restaurants can't do that because there's still more of a threat. Well, sorry, having 30 people in a restaurant is less of a threat than having 30,000 people in a stadium or in an enclosed arena. So it's all BS.
Well, it's kind of crazy because even tonight, like for Thanksgiving, my daughter had to get called in. She's 16 and she's the only one willing to come in. And the boss told her, said, listen, he goes, if you don't come in tonight, I have to close the restaurant on Thanksgiving because we just don't have enough staff. And so where are all these people gone? Like, are they that many people just playing PlayStation in their PJs, like collecting their... Is Serb still a thing? I don't even know.
They're hacking my PlayStation account, apparently.
Yeah, it's like an extended EI benefit now or something. They rolled it over into a different package. It's no longer called Serb, but it's like an extended recovery benefit or something. And it's It's for minimum wage jobs, it's still better to stay at home. I'm hearing like laborers being advertised, like companies are hiring, they're advertising on the radio, they're spending tens of thousands of dollars in radio airtime to say we're hiring people. We're hiring laborers at $45 an hour in the concrete industry.
Where is that? Sign me up.
Yeah.
Come on down. I'll message me or send me an email. I will link you up with them. But like, you can go be a concrete laborer, and literally your job is, every once in a while you hold a shovel. For the most part, you guide the crane, and you're $45 an hour on that, which is and plus benefits, plus an RSP, plus all that stuff. Like they're making it as easy as possible for you to want to go do a tough job.
I'll pack the van tonight.
So what you're saying is, turns out that paying people to stay at home and not work is making people stay at home and not want to work?
It's crazy, isn't it?
So
That's weird.
Must be one of those conspiracy theories.
It's almost as if not having an incentive to go to work makes it harder for people to go to work. And pretty sure that's been the fall of every communist country in all of history.
Oh, you took that line from away from me. It's going to go there next.
Listen, communists and CL are my thing. You need your own thing, Ian.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of all the talk about guaranteed income?
It's the same thing. It's just CERB or UBI. It's all kind of the same thing. It's like that's the whole idea of communism too. Is like, a doctor would get paid the same as a street sweeper, which worked great for the first generation, but then there was no incentive to ever go out and go to medical school again. So, I'm going to disagree there, and I've got my flame suit on. I know this is a hot topic, but I'm actually in full support of a UBI. I really am. A universal basic income, not enough to live on, right? I'm not talking about like $5,000 a month or anything. I'm talking about enough to take your minimum wage job and make it a little bit more comfortable, as long as, and this is the asterisk on this, as long as it replaces all of the other social programs like OAS and CPP and EI and welfare. If it replaces all of those other programs, the reason I'm in support of it is I think it would be cheaper. That is definitely, if that was truly the case, I would agree with you. But again, the problem is it's not truly universal, because as soon as you start making a certain amount, they claw it back. So really, it's only for the benefit of society.
But it's like, if everybody that has a social insurance number, the day you turn 18, you start getting, I'll call it $1,000 a month as a round number.
Yeah.
You start getting $1,000 a month. That's not enough to live on for the average person. I would hope not, anyways. But it's enough. It's enough that that I will, I would never be homeless, right? If I was in a real dire strait, I lost my job tomorrow, I got in a car crash, whatever, it would keep me afloat until I could get back on my feet.
Except for the problem is that as soon as the landlord knows you can afford at least $1,000 a month, guess what? The minimum rent is going to be everywhere.
Goes up.
But you can't rent an apartment for less than $2,500 a month right now, anyways. At least in my area.
No, I'm just saying, like, basically, just like minimum wage, it drives the cost of everything up, right?
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with that. But again, I'm saying the reason I'm in favor of it is if it replaced Canadian Pension Plan and Old Age Security and EI and welfare, it would be cheaper to operate. Yep. That would be the reason that I'm in favor of it.
But it had to be
if you give it to everybody the day they turn 18,
yep,
until the day they die, and you don't have, then there are no administration costs. It just happens automatically. You register on your 18th birthday, it goes into your bank account, and that's that. Right? There's no application process. There's no human interaction with it. Right? It just happens. The reason I'm in favor of that is because it would be cheaper than having caseworkers to assess all of these things and having to administer CPP and having source deductions and all of these other things. It would be cheaper and easier to manage, and so that's the reason I would be in favor of it.
What kind of money are you talking? $1,000 a month, or maybe it's a graduated system? $1,000 a month. No, if it's graduated, it's not universal, and if it's graduated, then it means that somebody has to administer it. I'm talking like everybody top to bottom gets $1,000 a month, and if you want to use that to donate to charity and write it off on your taxes, great. And if you want to use it to, send your kids to a school, then you do that. And if you want to use it to
pay your mortgage, then you do that with it. And it's not, you know, we're not all going to be driving, you know, we're not all going to be driving Cadillacs. We're not all going to be living in mansions, but it means that, yeah, it means we're going to be surviving. And to your point, Ian, it means that the landlord has some kind of assurance that even the substantial portion of my rent is going to get paid if something bad happens to me.
I don't know. There's lots of cases now where, I mean, because, and I'm just going to throw this out there, because of the moratorium on evictions and everything, that people have just stopped paying the rent. They can do it. They've just decided that they're not going to do it because there is no ramification for them. And I mean, at some time they'll be said, okay, you have to pay the rent. And then they'll just say, okay, I'm moving out. Yep, and the landlord's the one that gets stiffed.
Absolutely. And this isn't a perfect system in any way. Like any social welfare, OAS, CPP, employment insurance, any of it is going to cost money from somewhere, and it's going to send money out. You know, I paid into EI for, you know, 25 years, never used it once. If I did use it all of a sudden, it would go pretty well for me. But, you know, there's no guarantee at this point that by the time I'm ready to retire, you know, I'm 20, where am I? Almost 30 years right now from being able to collect CPP. The chances of me actually being able to collect that, despite how much I've paid into it over the years, is, you know, approaching zero. Especially if, you know, our dear leader keeps doing the things that he's doing. At some point, that money's going to disappear. So, again, if we can reduce cost, then I think that would be of benefit. And I still think it would if you took all the levels, right? Because right now, like, welfare is at municipal level, and EI is federal, and there's provincial deductions, and there's federal deductions, there's municipal things. If you took all of those programs, you added them all up, I think it would be cheaper. And that's the only reason I think it's a good idea. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I might be wrong. But
that's what Kyle wants to know, and I was going to ask.
Back in my day,
it's entirely possible I'm wrong. But, you know, it seems to me like it would be cheaper, and if it is, then that makes sense because there's no administration.
Back in my day, there was a lot of inflation, like Jason points out, and the consequence is everything cost more. It used to be you could buy anything for a nickel.
Give me 5 B's for a nickel, they used to say, and you know the important part of the story is I had an onion on my belt, which was the style at the time.
Oh, jeez.
We'd probably pay a lot of that back in taxes anyways, eh?
Well, but that's it. Like every dollar that the government gets comes from comes out of our pockets.
Yeah.
So if we're paying taxes anyways, it would make sense for us to pay. It would make sense for us to reduce the operating cost, right? And have a fixed operating cost of essentially zero. It's whatever it costs to run the servers at CRA, which are already running anyways. So if it's a fixed cost and it's a fixed payout, then it's really easy to budget for, and we don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
Good.
But I mean, let's be real. Like the country that we live in will never get rid of OAS, CPP, EI, and welfare in favor of a UBI. This would always be on top of. No. In which case, we are so far beyond screwed. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about adding like $35 billion to our annual debt. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you already touched on it earlier, guys. Like, you know, we'll just print $1 trillion platinum coin.
Yeah. You don't.
It'll have, I'm assuming, a polar bear on it. I don't know.
And you know what we could do? We could print it with a 3D printer.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
All the answers you ever need for anything are found on the Canadian Prepper Podcast.
So coming up this winter, guys, with going Australia and New Zealand as an example, are we going to have more lockdowns? Because Dina Hinshaw there in Alberta swore up and down there'd be no more lockdowns ever. So did Jason Kenney, I think, say that. And they turned right around and did more of them. So what's happening in Canada this winter?
I already predicted we'd be locked down by this weekend, so I've already been wrong on this. But I hope that I continue to be wrong, and we're okay. But I don't see how it's going to happen. Right? Cases are going to keep going up because it's winter and people get sniffly, and so more people are going to get tested because they've got sniffles. And because more people are going to get tested, we're going to see more positive results, despite the fact that they're subclinical. Otherwise, they'd be subclinical except for mandated testing. And so, as cases rise, they're going to lock us down again for our own good, because it puts the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again.
Yeah, I agree. I got a bad feeling as well that we're going to see some more lockdowns. But with that, I think we're going to see more pushback as well, because people are obviously getting tired of it and they're starting to
fed up.
Push back more. So I got a real bad feeling that, we're going to see it again, but I think we're going to start seeing a lot more protests and a lot more people just pushing back against it, which is obviously going to.
Yeah,
please stop protesting in front of hospitals. It's not the hospital's fault.
It's hard to find too, but if you actually do a little dig, you can find a lot of stuff from Melbourne, Paris, Rome, and a couple other places where there's some massive protests going on. Right, Melbourne looks like a war zone right now with the cops, the way they're interacting with the public, and it's been a little crazy to say the least. But anyway, on that note, somebody pointed out a good point to me today is the fact that as of the end of November now, some people in Canada will be unable to leave the country because the U.S. border is closed. They can't walk over, and they can't fly, and they can't take a train or a bus. So very North Korean at this point that certain people literally can't leave the country anymore.
Well, and it'll always be said that they're choosing to put themselves in a position where they can't leave, but pretty sure they. But the answer will always be that Canada isn't restricting them from leaving. The U.S. is restricting them from entering.
Only if you're driving over. Trudeau has said you cannot get on a plane, you cannot get on a train, you cannot if you're not vaccinated. So the only option is to drive over. So yes, the U.S. is stopping you. Only one out of several different ways to be able to get over there.
Yeah, so that would be the argument, right? Like I'm just thinking about the constitutional challenges, because section 7 of the Constitution says that everybody has the right to enter, remain in, move about freely, and leave Canada at any time. Every citizen.
But yet, if you travel by air right now, you can certainly enter the States. So it's
So right, like it's the U.S. that's actually prohibiting you from entering the country. Right, Canada's the government of Canada is not stopping you from leaving. They're just stopping you from getting into small contained spaces. Which, I mean, I still don't understand the logic behind. I can't drive across the border, but I can get in an airplane full of other people and fly across. Like that logic doesn't make any sense to me.
Or why they're okay with letting their people come north, but not other people come south.
Or why they can come here but we can't go there. That also baffles me. But it has never made any sense to me that it's unsafe for me to drive across the border with somebody that likely lives with me, and that's why they're in the car with me. But if we get on an airplane with 50 other people and start breathing each other's farts for the next 4 hours, it's perfectly okay.
Yeah. Well, apparently what's starting to go on now is, especially for the snowbirds and that, is they're hiring somebody to take their motorhome or their RV or whatever, take it across the border and drop it at the closest airport on the other side of the border. And they're renting a helicopter and they're getting flown over and dropped at the airport. And because you can still fly over. And as far as I know, the restrictions to getting on like a helicopter and paying for it yourself and whatever, there's no COVID restriction on that. So that's apparently what's coming down is groups of people are getting together and they're hiring a company to take their 2 or 3 motorhomes down, and they're all jumping on a helicopter and they're plopping over there, and then they're getting in their vehicles and they're driving south.
So
this is all for their safety.
Yep.
So assuming this is how we get kicked off Facebook, right?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, that pretty much answers Jason's question as well. In the live chat, he just asked if anybody knows what the rules are regarding a charter or private flights. So it sounds like helicopters are okay. So I'd assume the private flights are
corporate flights have always been wide open and continues to be. So that's very interesting.
There you go, Jason.
Yeah. Last thing I just want to touch on here before my internet finally shits the bed here. Touching base with like-minded types. So I just happened to get a random contact from one of our old buddies there on the East Coast, the Welsh blacksmith, we'll call him. He was just checking to see how I've been doing the last couple months with the COVID business and everything else. But he actually brought up a
He
good
also
point.
recognized you're missing.
We all kind of need to keep tabs. I didn't hear that because thank goodness the internet's shit in the bed again. But we need to keep tabs on everybody for mental health among friends because all this stress that's been going on lately. Like, I mean, have you guys been keeping regular contact with all your kind of mag types?
Absolutely, and it's it's poignant that you say that today. Today is in fact World Mental Health Day, and it is super important to check in with your people. Make sure, and it's really easy to get into the mindset that I'm a tough guy and I can deal with things myself. I'll be the first one to say it. This has been a shit couple of years. Everybody talk to each other, right? Make sure everybody's okay. Make sure the people around you are doing all right. And even if they say they are, they probably aren't. It's okay to not be okay. Talk it out.
Yep.
And definitely check in with the people around you.
Yeah, it's important.
We've got a friend of ours that she's just had a new baby. She's about 3 months old. And the father works on, I don't remember which pipeline, but it's not out west. It's in southern Ontario. And he's gone for quite a long time, quite a long stint, like 5-6 weeks at a time. And every so often, my wife or I will text her, call her. There's another couple, Pierre and Melissa. Pierre's on the other CPP. He knows who she is. We'll call her, go down for supper, whatnot, just make sure she's doing okay. And we've kept an eye on her. And she's doing good.
Absolutely, especially young kids. People with young kids, they're not okay. There's nobody that's doing well if they've got young kids. Those little monsters are not easy to deal with, especially if you're on your own.
Well, I mean, the whole notion.
Every parent out there knows I'm right, whether you want to admit it or not.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
The whole notion that it takes a village to raise a child,
absolutely.
When all of a sudden 100%. you're constricted to a much smaller group. So anyway, that's a great point that's going to springboard into what some of the stuff I was going to talk about. Listening to some other podcasts, thinking more and more about building community level.
Whoa. You've been cheating on us with other podcasts?
I have.
We already talked about gasifiers.
And now what happens?
If we turn this into a daily podcast, huffing my CO, if we turn this into a daily podcast, all about gasifiers, sure, that's fine. I won't need anything else. But when I'm cleaning up the garage and stuff, I've listened to our podcast library 3 or 4 times. Sometimes I branch out a bit. What can I say? Anyway, just thinking more and more about building that community level resiliency, and strengthening at very least sort of my mag as much as possible. The ability to build community with like-minded people, or a broader community of people who I at least have the ability to work with, even if you don't agree with them all the time. Like we have disagreements among us. I'm the rare left-wing prepper that, I work in healthcare. I'm fine with vaccines. But, the ability to work together, because the lone wolf model of prepping, unless you're Ian, who just has everything together, building community is important, right? Y'all need to sleep at some point. I would far sooner live in a neighborhood where everyone has a giant vegetable garden and my neighbors aren't trying to steal from mine, but I can trade my potatoes for their squash or whatever, right? Here's some eggs. Oh, great. Here's some potatoes. If we're prepared and we can look after ourselves, our family, have a mag that's looking after itself, and then all of a sudden we have extra seeds to help neighbors plant gardens, having comms so that we can tell the neighborhood what's going on in the broader world. I mean, I think that's something tremendously valuable that sort of goes beyond. It's great to think about hiding out in your bunker and eating nothing but freeze-dried food, but the reality is that a community is going to do much better in a disaster working together as a community. And if we have the opportunity to be leaders, to sort of have those few, no pun intended, but seed items to help a community maintain itself and look after its own needs, I think that's tremendously valuable. And whether building community starts with looking after your neighbors with young children and a spouse who's away for work, if it's looking after each other's mental health, like I think building community, building our local bags, our wider area. I mean, you guys are all valuable resources. I've asked our group all kinds of questions, things I didn't know that I get almost instant answers to. It's fantastic. So, what are some of the things that you guys see value in building our community?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right that having that community is huge, because I think we've said it at least 2 or 3 times now on the podcast. You can't know it all. So having that group of people with a diverse skill set is absolutely priceless, because you're never going to know everything, and being able to reach out to that group and say, hey, how do I do this? Or I don't know how to do that, and getting a valid and educated response back is priceless.
And not just that, getting a response that doesn't have like a sneer of derision with it. Because if you say like, I'm preparing for the collapse of society, and I need to know this, because if you ask a subject matter expert, they might kind of think you're absolutely off your rocker. But if you're just talking about power outages to a like-minded group of people, that they think it's normal, which is good.
100%.
I mean, I think hopefully all of us and all the listeners we go and look at some of the assumptions we make. We all assume power is always going to come out of that outlet in the wall. Well, what happens if it's not? Right? So. I mean, I guess that can kind of springboard into my next point. Just talking about threat assessments. Our preps are kind of looking at societal collapse, but I think our biggest threat on our individual radars shifts. When we were reading 1 Second After or 77 Days in September, I'm kind of under the assumption that there's going to be an EMP any day now. The lights go out.
The threat from solar EMP is something like 12% right now, which is not insignificant.
Oh, absolutely. And sort of the light switch. The light switch turning off is probably where I should go first, not the EMP. But it shifts around back in the fall or last fall with the U.S. election and the January 6th insurgency. The crazy political instability was sort of the biggest thing on my radar. More recently, I've been paying attention to the crumbles, as Robert Evans puts it in his podcast. General decay of society.
And let's not forget, like the 2003 blackout that affected most of the continent to the east, right? Like Ontario and east, and then most of the eastern seaboard in the U.S. That was all caused by one generating station in Pennsylvania overloading.
Yeah, one tree.
Right? Yeah, it was like one teeny tiny little infinitesimal point in the system caused this entire cascade effect. Like, even though it's only a couple of days to a couple of weeks, things will get back to normal slowly, but you're going to be on your own for some amount of time, right? And that's probably the more realistic threat than a solar flare wiping out all the microchips in one part, in one face of the world, or some kind of nefarious attack on an electrical grid, or a high orbit detonation EMP kind of thing. Like, it's not impossible, but I would say it's unlikely. But it has happened where one little thing goes wrong and our incredibly fragile grid goes down for just a little bit.
Well,
and that's all kinds of inconvenient.
Really interesting listening to an after analysis by engineers looking at the Texas power grid failures and sort of how sensitive the entire grid is to frequency, right? The grid runs on 60 hertz, and all of a sudden your supply and your production, supply and demand consumption side, if you start getting those crazy out of balance, it throws off that frequency, and it takes so little to throw it out. And part of what they had to do was manually shut things down, basically as a last resort, because if the system were to crash and they had to like restart the entire system from scratch, like everything is shut down, and I want to say they call it a black start. That process would literally take months. So, the circuit breakers and the safety systems were kicking in to prevent this massive big problem.
Isn't that a cold start?
Cold start or black start, I'm not sure. I've heard a couple of different terms for it. But, okay. I mean, that regardless, to start the system and get everything back in tune at that same 60 hertz frequency, on frequency, so you're not creating harmonics, you're not canceling things out. It's a scary process. And I mean, the electrical grid is always something that's showing up on my radar because it's a giant, fragile 60-year-old piece of technology, 60-plus-year-old piece of technology that has huge parts that are very difficult to replace. So,
well, and that take months of production and huge lead times just to get them, on the continent and into the right physical location, let alone the installation.
Well, and I mean, jumping back to our earlier stuff, when these parts, some of these massive 1 million+ pound transformers that are made in 2 places in the world, they're not local; they're made continents away and shipped across seas, and
we don't have any dock workers to get them off the ships, and we don't have any ships or containers to move them in, and
they got to wait 3 weeks when they get here.
Yeah. So
well, I think, and Eric mentioned it when his account got hacked there. I think the biggest threat we have is cyber attacks. I mean, look at the Colonial Pipeline shut down, and there's been other hacks and stuff like that. I think that is our biggest threat, honestly.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Jeff. That's something that we're seeing a lot more of.
I mean, we're so dependent on the Internet of Things. Right? Yep. Every little thing is controlled, and I mean, in the I forget which episode it was, but one of the listeners in the chat was talking about the gas lines being controlled. If they lose internet connectivity as a safety measure, they shut down. So if that's the default position, that's not good for us.
Oh, that's not good at all. But yeah, I think cyber attacks definitely a big thing on my radar right now.
So the gas line
some asshole's going to take your PlayStation account.
You know what? Have it. I rarely ever use the darn thing. Take it. Just don't charge stuff to my credit card. Which is probably the point of taking the account. So whatever.
Anyway, preppers have kind of a constant risk of seeming kind of pessimistic. Like, let's face it, our default position is to go to worst case scenario or slightly beyond that. We go beyond what what a lot of people consider worst case scenario. But I actually find a lot of hope in meeting so many like-minded people, seeing the resiliency that we all appreciate building, that sort of we see value in having these thought processes, building these skill sets, making these connections, having this network amongst us, and preparing ourselves so we'll be in a better place to help ourselves or to lead others in troubling times. Learning things which might be incredibly life-savingly invaluable one unforeseen day. So I actually find a lot of hope and comfort that people think about this stuff ahead of time, and we're not all just lemmings running along the path wherever the rest of the group is going.
Tinfoil hat wearing people.
Well, I mean,
Hey, what's wrong with tinfoil hats?
There are some tinfoil hats in the group.
If I'm wearing a tinfoil hat, then I'm ready to cook.
Now, I know there's a rule about what you should wear cooking bacon, but I didn't realize tinfoil hat. Anyway, the question that I'm going to put to you guys to end, hopefully on an optimistic tone. What brings you guys hope in the prepper world?
I would have to go with what you said, Scott, that you find hope in finding other people that are like-minded. It takes, I would think that it would take the stress off of me trying to not be that lone wolf guy. So I know I have somebody else out there to count on and that I'm not alone. None of my family is really into being prepared or anything. My sister has 3 kids and a husband, and she's got maybe a month of stuff stocked away. But a month for 5 people in the house doesn't take long to eat up. My parents are getting on in age, and they don't have a lot in the house anymore, and I've tried to tell them, okay, stock up some more. My brother's out in Newfoundland. He's had lots of bad winters, and he's actually started to grow a garden last year. I was really, really happy to see it, and they had some good success. Got some friends around here that are like-minded as me, but it took a long time to find them. So I agree with you, Scott, in that you find hope in finding other people that are like-minded that I can rely on.
If every one of my neighbors had a lovely vegetable garden, and all of a sudden I knew, the grocery store, something happens, power, internet, supply chain disruptions, whatever. But if all of my neighbors are able to go to their gardens and look after each other and trade amongst ourselves and look after each other, then I don't need to worry about someone trying to come and steal my stuff. I don't need to worry about spreading my resources thin, trying to feed others. But
then how would the government get their taxes?
Not my problem.
Hard to tax bartering a tomato, my friend.
Oh, if there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, they'll get the neighborhood lake breakers in there. They'll take care of it.
Anyway, I find hope in our group, in our thought processes, in preparing for this stuff. So it makes me happy. So that's how I kind of fight some of the pessimism, because when we all look at we're all going through picking news articles like, oh man, this world is just going downhill.
But I think, Scott, and you're right on it. And I think everything that's gone on the last couple of years, like the lockdowns and other things that have happened, is a lot more people are looking at themselves and saying, I'm not ready for this. And what do I do? And how do I prepare? And is there as you say, the like-minded people out there, and where do I find them? And how do I find them? And so I think there's more of us out there than we think there is.
Yep.
And also I'd like to add to that, like-minded people, but everybody from different backgrounds too. It doesn't matter where you come from or who you are or what your political beliefs are. It's, I've met a lot of people from, all different backgrounds that are doing this too. So.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, and I think if we took the time to really evaluate what a prepper is, right? If we put a real definition on it, I think you'd see that 95+% of the population does prepare for something that is important to them. Whether it aligns with our kind of goals of being completely self-sufficient for 2.5 years or not, it's most people keep an extra toothbrush on hand, or they keep a change of clothes in their car in case they get stuck somewhere. Like, most people do that. They just don't identify it as being prepared for an emergency.
Yeah.
Well, because you throw the word prepper out there and it freaks people out, right?
That's right.
Absolutely, right. There's a really negative connotation with preppers and doomsday, and I think that's probably part of it, right? There's a big connection between, like, the world is coming to an end, and these preppers / survivalists are the ones that are going to say, "I told you so." It's really off-putting. But if you dig down to it, there are, people will, I think most people have an extra jug of washer fluid in their car. Most people have a few days worth of food in their house.
Yeah.
And whether they recognize it or not as, I'm preparing for an emergency versus this is just a good idea in general, I think most people are, and just don't want to have a negative connotation with it.
And it's funny, if you and I've kind of had this happen, or talked to a few people, and kind of talked about, well, I'm a bit of a prepper, and automatically, like you said, they go to this, oh, well, you must walk around in camo with the war paint on, and you got the submachine gun with the ammo all over you, and you got a bunker in the backyard with
all of
50
it.
years. That's what people see. They don't see the, and the one person I talked to, I said, well, do you can stuff at the end? They're like, oh yeah, I do pickles and I do this and I do that. And it's like, well, like it or not, you're a prepper. You've prepared, you may not think you are, but you now all of a sudden have this. If something happens, you've got something to go back on. And they kind of went,
blinders off.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
We have a branding problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people are scared of the
absolutely
word prepper.
right. But that's it. We have this huge persona of guys in the woods that are running around and setting booby traps for the feds, and I mean, that's as much as that sounds fun on paper, there's no basis in reality for that. Right?
No, and there was and I think Eric brought it up a few episodes ago. There was a guy out in Eastern Ontario that got arrested for something, and it was he did wrong. He had some illegal firearms and whatever. But what was the big topic was prepper arrested for they
firearms offenses or something like that. And he had
media
an
just-
arsenal.
Oh yeah, it was a prepper arrested with his arsenal, and he had 10 guns and a bunch of ammo. That's what they focused on. When really, yes, he did a bad thing, which he probably shouldn't have done, and now he's paying the price for it. But I think all of us have those those things in the back of our closet or in a safe, secure place, so that when we have to go hunt our own food because ships can't unload, we can. And it's an uncomfortable truth that people don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Right? It's a really inconvenient reality that that our supply system is as fragile as it really is. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that we're 3 days away from anarchy.
No.
Right? One really well placed bridge emergency across the 401 would absolutely cripple the supply chain from of absolutely everything, right? Like one bridge being all of a sudden inoperable for a couple of weeks would be absolutely devastating.
Well, they had the which bridge is that one in Windsor that they had it shut down for 6 hours for a bomb scare there a week ago or so, and they were saying it was a 6-hour closure, and they figured it was a $10 million hit to the economy.
Yep. Well, it's the busiest border crossing in the world, or in North America. I forget.
America. Yep.
It is definitely North America. I'm not sure about any other, about the rest of the world, but if I've crossed that bridge many times, and if there's fewer than 1,000 trucks either in line to cross or waiting to clear customs, that's a weird day. right? So all of a sudden you've got, these thousands, hundreds of thousands of pounds of cargo. If they can't go anywhere, that's a really bad time.
That's true. We've got an actual prepper in the live chat here, everybody. Mailman NB was out in the woods today, running around.
You are a bad, scary person, and you're what's wrong with society. Why don't you just bow down to the government and let them take care of you the way that they promised they would?
Yeah, sit at home, play PlayStation. Okay, collect your serve. Call it a day.
Take Eric's account.
Yeah. Apparently my account's up for grabs, so go for it.
Well, podcast challenge time.
I think it's podcast challenge time.
Yeah. So the podcast challenge for this week is make a point of finding and sitting down with a couple of like-minded folks and talk about potential concerns, but more importantly, solutions. As much as there's concerns, what's the solution? In my other job, I used to be, don't come to me with a complaint if something's wrong. Come to me with a solution to make it better. Yep. So I think that's a very important point is, like we say, make a point, sit down with some like-minded folks and try to come up with some solutions to potential concerns.
I like it.
I'm sitting down with Mailman NB and finding out where his woods are, because I bet there's deer and or moose in those woods.
There probably are. Not that me and Ian would be able to harvest any of those deer, but
Yeah, eventually we would.
All right. Shall we move into upcoming events?
All right, so we got the Film Aficionado Gun Series, also known as FAGS match, October 23rd at Guelph Rod and Gun Club. The link is on Practice Score. It is kind of like IDPA, but not entirely related to IDPA. It is a movie-themed shooting competition, like they've done Die Hard, where you had to kind of show up in a wife beater, Red 92, and lighter. And then they've also done a couple of movie-related ones. Yeah, and they have to scream yippee-ki-yay while you're shooting at the hostage. The guy behind the hostage, and not shoot the hostage. And there's actually been a couple good ones. And I can't remember what movie they're doing this time, but they've done. I think they've done Boondock Saints and a couple other ones too. So check it out. It's actually kind of a funny thing to watch the after results on it. But
they certainly could have come up with a better acronym than what they did. But
no, I think that's exactly why they did it. If you ever watch Team America, it makes total sense, right? So anyway,
yeah. All right, deal of the week.
Oh, is that me?
Yes, that is.
Sorry, I closed the show notes because I wasn't paying attention. Was it the little buddy heater, the Mr. Buddy heater? I forget what we decided on.
No, that wasn't any time on the show notes for tonight.
I got it.
Okay, go for it. I don't have them in front of me now.
In my best safety nerd voice, it is the Bluehive Power Bank, 5,300 milliamp hour at $15.98, which is regular $49.99 at Canadian Tire. Links in the show notes.
Don't forget to keep an eye out for the carbon monoxide when operating said device.
That's right.
You forgot that line. Yeah.
Sorry. My bad.
Another one may not produce carbon monoxide, may or not need a detector.
Yeah, just don't light it on fire. It'll be fine. So another one, Canadian Tire, Wildlife Innovations Prizm trail and game camera combo. So it's regularly $299.99, so $230. It's on sale for $99.99. So check that out if you need a trail camera. And shout outs.
So shout out to Ian. Thanks for coming out. It's been a pleasure. Haven't seen you in a while. And thanks for reading my thing because I wasn't paying attention.
This is really exciting. It's like my first episode all over again.
And we're about as organized.
There you go. Kyle's got his stats in for this episode. CO count is 6, 26. Wood gasifiers 4, almost ham operator 6, Canadian Tire 2, CGN 3. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate that.
Those aren't bad stats.
That's some pretty good stats. Yeah, that's well done. Quick shout out to everyone that's joined the Discord server. Appreciate everybody signing up. I'm hoping that it's going to make communication between panelists and listeners a lot easier. wondering if maybe email was just a barrier. So got that all set up now.
Well, and also we already got Josh from Ham Radio Crush Crush on there too, didn't we?
He was the first person
He
to
was
join.
the first one on.
Yep. So Josh is kicking around there too, and yeah, like I said, I'm hoping that it's going to break down some communication barriers and get everybody kind of chatting amongst each other without it having to be on Sunday night. But of course, please keep coming back on Sunday as well.
Cool. I got a shout out for the Island Mentor, also the listener who's listening in the live chat, who's known as Fast Talker, for helping out my parents. They had a problem to get rid of, so to speak. They had an excess dog from the farm that it wasn't right to keep it in town anymore, and him and his family managed to take it on a trial basis. So we'll see how that goes.
Nice.
Good.
Very nice. I'm going to shout out Robert Evans and his crew and Margaret Killjoy for their competing podcasts. There's lots of good information out there. It doesn't just have to come from us.
Fair enough.
Blasphemy. Just because we're running long, we'll skip the email iTunes, I guess, this week because we're running long.
Yeah, I figure we'll skip those and we'll get to them next week because there's a few.
Yeah.
But we won't drone on. So yeah, with that, I'll bring episode 133 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or of course your favorite podcast app. Please help us out. Take a second, submit a review. It does help other people find us.
We record these shows. We record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click on the notifications tab. That will give you an alert when we're going live. You can contact me to talk about CO at Alan with one L at prepperpodcast.ca.
Oh, awesome.
And if you want to reach me, you can get me at just feedback at prepperpodcast.ca. And like E. Matson says in the live chat, shout out to Eric for getting us going on the Discord. And I think it'll be a really good way to make contacts and get much better information.
I don't think we've mentioned it, but the plan is to just kind of slip into Discord after the live so that we can sort of have real meaningful chat the way Josh does with his crew. So I think that's a lovely bit of information. So
yeah, so there's the audio section in the Discord, and it's after show banter. So I'm gonna try and hop in there after every show if I can, if I've got the time, and we can just chit chat with everybody there and see where the topics go. Because why not? Steve, where can everybody get you?
Feedback at prepperpodcast.ca also.
All right, sweet. You can reach Ian directly by emailing me at theislandretreat@gmail.com and on Gab and Odyssey on at the Island Retreat. And other than that, you can also find me at Canadian Patriot Podcast on iTunes and YouTube and the Discord group now. Both of them, Canadian Patriot or Canadian Prepper Podcast. Email us if you want an invite, and you can find us discussing why government waste in society compels me to just talk it out.
Brad, where can everybody get you?
You can reach me at monkman038@gmail.com.
Awesome. You can get me at Rapid Survival, rapidsurvival.com on the live chat. You can email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca, or of course on the Discord that is now set up as well. I've put the link in the live chat here a few times, so if anybody wants to join, there's a link floating around there now. Thanks for joining us this evening, and until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.
Well, it's nice to have Ian back.